Okay, so this one is large whale entanglement response in Alaska. There's going to be some gory pictures here, so prepare yourself. But I showed them to the kids at Chugach a few years ago, and they were okay with it, so I think you should be okay with it. So what is an entanglement? It's just animals getting caught in like marine debris, fishing gear, mooring lines, anything that's in the water that's not natural. It gets wrapped up. For this one, talk will be large whales, but anything, sea lions, a lot of animals can get caught up in this kind of type of debris. And why is it bad? So I'm going to go through a few kind of gory slides here and how does it harm whales. So the first thing is this physical trauma. The lines cut into the animals. It's like, I don't know, picture a fishing line or something wrapped around you, something thin, tight, cutting into your arm or your finger. There's that. Here's a close-up of that same kind of injury. These little creatures on the tail flukes are cyamids or whale lice. They'll come up again in a minute, but this just shows how this narrow line is cutting into the peduncle, the base of the tail on this humpback whale. Dragging gear around, overall health declines. This is a humpback whale. It's supposed to be black, dark, like a humpback, but it's covered with whale lice, cyamids. With the gear on it, entangled whale, it can't, breach, it can't shake these whale lice off, so it just gets covered with it. So overall health goes down. Here's an entangled gray whale. They come through the sound every now and then, just covered with these cyamids or whale lice. Not good. They can also get infections. This is a North Atlantic right whale, a juvenile. It was a pretty minor entanglement just around the peck. It didn't seem like it was life-threatening at the time, but as the animal grew, it grew into the entanglement, and it cut in an infection, and this animal died. I think there's only 300 or so, 350 North Pacific or North Atlantic right whales left. I think there's only like 30 or 50. Barb might be able to help me. North Pacific right whales. So there's hardly any of those left. So losing one animal is huge. Drowning doesn't happen very often. This is a calf down by Juneau, got wrapped up in a gill net and drowned. Typically, animals don't drown. They're big enough to haul the gear around and get away. There's other impacts. If you're tangled up, you might spend more time at the surface. It might be harder to evade a ship or a vessel. So here's an animal that's got prop strikes across its back, and it's also got a line across the back. So other things can weaken the animal. But mostly it's starvation. That's what finally gets them in the end. They're big animals. They're not going to starve for a long time, but if they can't feed properly, and that's what tends to get them. So this is a humpback whale, and this is in Hawaii. So a lot of times these animals will tow gear from Alaska down to Hawaii on their migration. But you can see here that up in the front, that ridge is the back of the skull. You see scapula showing, and you see that really prominent vertebrae showing in the animal. So starvation is what gets them in the end. In a way, that's good for us because it gives us time to respond if we have to respond. There's time. The animal is not going to die over the next, day or two or week or so. Here's a gray whale that's entangled and starving. It almost looks like a sea serpent. You can see how like an old sailor would think, oh, that's very snake-like. So why do we respond to whales? Why do we care? The first thing is, we're not going to save every whale. Human safety is a priority. There's no way we're going to get to every one of them. So we want to release some of them if we can. And we want to provide a well thought out professional response. We don't want the general public going out there. It can be dangerous. Like if somebody goes out there and tries to cut a whale free, they're probably not helping the whale that much, and they could be putting themselves at risk too. So we just want a well-informed and thoughtful response, and if we don't do it, then somebody else is going to feel the necessity to go out there and try to help the whale. Increased awareness about marine debris and gear in the water, all these things, just more public awareness of the issue. And finally, to gather information, what type of gear the whale's getting caught in, is it changing? How can we prevent this to happen in the future? So this is why we respond, collect information and to try to save some of the whales. So who can respond? So there's 5 levels, and you guys can all be level 1s if you do this online course that I'll show you. But it requires, a lot of training. And so level 1 or 2 responders, they're out there documenting, and you should know, and it's a team effort. Everybody's important, even to logistics. Somebody that's, coordinating your flights. Talking to the Coast Guard, talking to, whoever observed this whale first. But you get trained in the tracking and documenting how to do a good job of, I saw an entangled whale in Prince William Sound like that. That's not helpful. But here's a location, a time, a direction. This is what kind of gear is on it. That's useful. So that's level 1s and 2s. Level 3s can approach closer. They require a lot more training, and they may be allowed to attach like a telemetry buoy onto the whale, so we can track the whale. Sometimes we'll do that if we think we can get back the whale, but can't. It's rough. We can't do it right now. It's getting dark. Put a telemetry buoy on it and come back later. So level 4. So I'm a level 4. I can start cutting gear off of a whale. But I can't do North Atlantic right whales because they're dangerous and I'm not trained for that. So, and then level 5s can do everything a level 4 can do, but they can do right whales as well. So here's what we have for, there's not very many people that can do this. Like maybe 3 or 4 in Alaska, I don't know, at any time, maybe 5 at the highest can actually do some cutting, can cut a whale free. Only 9 level 4s on the whole West Coast. There's more on the East Coast, does a little bit better. We have 1 level 5 in Hawaii that comes up in this training. But even before I go out and start working on a whale, I'll consult with other people. I'll consult with a level 5 and say, okay, this is what I think's happening. You don't just rush in there and start cutting away. You want to have a well thought out process. It's dangerous to the whale. It's dangerous to rescuers. Joe Hallett, he was an experienced disentangler working on right whales. He was killed by a right whale in Canada. He was Canadian. The whale made a cut. The whale fluked up and just crushed him. So, and that changed a lot of our policies. Things got a lot more strict and a lot more restrictive than what we could do. They're big, 40 tons, can your boat launch 40 tons up in the air? Just think of how much power they have to get completely airborne. The weather's bad in Alaska. It's remote, darkness, it's a big ocean. There's a lot of motivation to save whales. People get emotional, you don't want an emotional response. It's like, if your dog falls through the ice and you run out there to save it, now you and the dog are falling through the ice. Well thought out, try to be very rational with your response. But people are like, you have to get out there right now and save that whale, or, I'm going to do it. It has to be controlled and well thought out. We don't have a lot of resources. It's expensive to get anywhere in Alaska. Getting there on time to find the whale is not always easy. I would probably have to fly up to Prince William Sound. I've flown to Dutch Harbor to do disentanglements. You don't want to make all this effort and, there's no whale there. Or, time, money, equipment, people. You don't want to burn people out. And it's relatively rare, maybe 8 cases a year, although I just got a message that there might be an entangled whale in Juneau, right, during lunch. So you're not really training up a lot of people. You're not getting a lot of training or a lot of on-hands experience. And again, the ultimate goal is not to free every animal. It's to do the best you can, collect data, document, and do what you can without risking any human injuries or health. So we do have specialized tools. These are just some of the things we used, like a flying cutting grapple, so we don't want to get too close to the whale. We can toss that and make some cuts. A flying knife, it's a knife that's attached to a long pole. You reach out and you can get away from the animal if you need to. This other one, this gobbler guillotine, is one that I haven't never used it, but it's a broadhead for turkey hunting, and it's supposed to cut the head off of a turkey. So if a line's really tight and embedded in the whale, pressed into the skin, this might be an option for that line's under tension, just to hit that with a crossbow, and it cuts the line. Kind of a clever idea. I've never seen it in action. So you want to make good assessments. If you saw a whale out there and just went I'm going to cut this buoy off, you haven't done anything. You've probably made the whale harder to find. This is an entangled whale from Dutch Harbor. We see one line wrapped around it through its mouth. Okay, it's got that, but then we put a camera down, and there's all this other stuff going on down around the flukes. We want to make a good evaluation of what line do we cut first. How do we approach this so we get all the gear off or most of the gear off without causing further harm or else injuring ourselves. You gotta look at weather. How's the animal behaving? Did it just get entangled? Is it running? Maybe that's not a good time to go. Is the weather going to get bad? It's going to get dark. Know when to stand down. That's important. And again, it's a team effort. Everybody on the team weighs in on what we should be doing and the best way to do it. So do we have time for a little video, or is that?
We have maybe 4 minutes.
Okay, I'll try this. How do I activate this? Forward or? Oops. It seems to want to skip it. Okay. Oh, no, there it goes. Okay, this is me, so I'm going to tell you all the things I'm doing wrong. This is an entangled whale in Dutch Harbor. We had a drone flying. This is making a cut on a mouth entanglement with a flying knife. So the knife's in there. You get in there. One thing that I was doing wrong, was me, is I was having some communication issues with the helmsman. He was a little bit hard of hearing, and I was like talking the wrong way. If anyone's been on a boat, especially with your spouse, and you're talking the wrong way and they're driving, that was kind of going on. So that was my fault too. And so we just made a cut. Like we should not be coming back in right now. We should be waiting for this whale to respond. So we made a cut. How's the whale going to react? Is the gear going to shift? Is the gear, cutting into him a different way now? Is he going to be, upset? But we're coming back in, and I'm not even ready. I'm still trying to get the gear set up. So that buoy is a line that we attach to the whale, so we'd know where the whale was. It's really hard to see, in murky water. And then we have the whale coming back up. So the whale's still pretty mellow. And you can see that line across the head. So that was a mouth. The whale engulfed. In this case, it was a peacod pot, one of those big 8x8, like deadliest catch crab pots. Went through his mouth as he was feeding, and then got it wrapped around his flukes. So now I'm coming in here. The whale's reacting. We should let that whale calm down, and now we're trying to back out a little bit. He's probably feeling that release from his mouth, and he's a little upset. And now you see that buoy's a little bit more active. He's pulling it under now. He's feeling the gear shift. So here's another approach. So this whale's hogtied, line through the mouth that goes down around its flukes. So his flukes are kind of curled under him, so he can't really use his flukes. Now I'm kind of trying to come in here and make a cut on this bridle that goes. You can see some trailing line there. Now I'm in a bad place. We're over the flukes. That is not a good place to be. But we make a cut there. Now we're safe. Whales, they're not great at backing up, but having the boat in that position was not comforting. So you can still, he's kind of curled up like a shrimp a little bit. And we made that other cut there, and he's about to figure out that he can use his flukes again. And he'd been entangled for, I think, 3 or 4 days before we got out there. He was semi-anchored. He could drag this pot around. And now look at that buoy going. He's like, okay, he's kicking now. He's free. And then eventually for this one, oh, here it is. So now we're doing what we call the Nantucket sleigh ride. We're hooked onto the whale, that line across the bow. Andy Dietrich's holding on to it. We got to grapple into the whale. We're pulling ourselves up to the flukes. Now the whale can swim. His flukes are free. And we're coming up, and I'm trying to make a cut on all that gear that's tied up in his flukes. We're trying to trim that off now. So we're just being pulled by the whale right now. Oh no, you can hear us talking. I hope I don't say anything bad. So this is how fast we're going. The whale's towing us. The motor's up. Andy's looking back, checking to make sure there's no gear getting caught in our prop. Now he's trying to shift the weight. So I've got a cutting flying knife in the gear. So I'm going to take the weight. He's shifting it onto me, and that line's gonna cut. So we're still getting towed. I'm trying to get organized here, and trying not to cut the inflatable with the knife, which has happened, not by me, but it has happened. This is in Dutch Harbor. So this was inside a town. So this is like a high, people can see all this happening. So watch here in a second what's going to happen. So I'm messing around. We made a cut. I think we're still getting towed along. So the boat's hooked into the whale with a grapple onto the gear. And then you see the buoys coming by us, and they just popped up. I'm still trying to get organized. All the gear came off the whale, and we stop, and it's like the scene in Jaws where like the buoys are just sitting there, and you're looking like where like we didn't realize we'd cut the gear off, but now all of a sudden the whale's not towing us. There's buoys, and is it going to come up underneath us? Like where is it? We couldn't figure it out, and then we're like, okay, we're going to go over there and try to, and then we got all the gear off of them. But anyway, that's kind of what it's like. Should be pretty controlled and well thought out. So how can you help? I'm just going to go over the highlights here. Stay 100 yards away. Never get behind the whale. Try to document. Never get into the water with a whale. And picture like gillnet or how sticky gillnet is. If you're in the water, anything gets wrapped around you, you're toast. The whale doesn't know you want to help it. You're scaring it for the most part. Sometimes they kind of cooperate, but sometimes they're like, yeah, you're a threat. There's a number to call up there, the stranding hotline, Coast Guard on channel 16 if you see something. Document, direction, nature of entanglement, type of whale, whatever you can get. And then here I have take the Whale Entanglement Level 1 Alaska Region course online, which is kind of fun. I just did it. So here's some more information on the course, who to contact, and yeah, I think I'll leave this one up. I'll go back, but here's the gear we pulled off that whale. It's heavy Bering Sea gear. But anyway, here's information, and yeah, I can take any questions if there's time.
Thank you, John. Both those presentations were fascinating. We'll just do one question if there's one in the room.
Oh,
yes.
We found a number of dead whales this past summer in the Sound. And so what should we do if we...
Call Barb right there. Yeah. She's going to talk about that. Yep. Yep. Good question. All right. Thanks.